welcome back or welcome to the Realities of Life with Christ podcast. I am your host, Tayana, and today I have a very special guest, Miss Angie Crossland.
Hi,
Say
everyone. Hi.
I am so excited to have Angie on. As you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about overcoming hard-heartedness, or not hard, but cold-heartedness. So I wanted to have Angie on for this episode just because Angie is such a warm, kind-hearted person. She's thoughtful. She's so generous and loving. But unfortunately, most times when you have that kind of heart, you tend to get taken advantage of. You tend to come across people who want to just kind of tarnish your name and, things like that. Most people like that are the target for those type of things. So I understand that Angie has gone through those things. And that's why I wanted to have her on here, because these are things that everybody does, like not just people of the world, but Christians. It happens to Christians too. So, and when things like this happens, we get tempted to become hard-hearted and cold-hearted and like isolate ourselves and things like that. So I want to have Angie on to tell y'all how to not do that whenever you get tempted with that. So with that being said, Angie, so what is your experience with these types of things?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. And I have had many experiences with this more often than normal. And it is just a huge temptation to become hard-hearted and to isolate. But that is really just a major trick of the enemy. He wants you isolated and thinking you can do life alone, because when he has you alone, that's when he's sending all those eerie thoughts. So it is extremely important to guard your heart, know your lane in people's lives, and play the role accordingly. Also, and don't think hard-heartedness can only come from situations with people, because you can become hard-hearted towards God too.
That's really good. I'm so glad that you brought that up. And also another thing, like knowing your lane in other people's lives, not giving, because like I said, you're just a naturally like generous person, a naturally like warm-hearted person, but you still, you can always be that with everyone, but still knowing your lane in other people's lives just to protect yourself so that you won't get hurt. And then too, that piece about becoming hard-hearted against God or toward God, so true. And sometimes that happens and you barely even like notice it. That's really good. Thank you for bringing that up too. So how do you resist the temptation to become cold-hearted or hard-hearted?
I confess the word and I change my words. Like if I have been wronged or tempted, and let's just say like if you wronged me and I feel like an ick in my heart or just anything in my head, I'm saying like, oh, I don't like her. Like when I see you, I get irritated. I quickly just say, Lord, I thank you for Tayana. Lord, I love Tayana. And like even saying it when you're feeling like a way about a person, it's going to even sound like silly or just kind of like I don't want to say this or whatever. But that's what I'll do. Lord, I thank you for Tayana.
Man.
So when you're tempted to say something unkind about someone who has wronged you, just quickly change your words. And if you can't do that, then just don't speak at all. Just keep your mouth shut. Like, don't just talk bad about them or just the situation. Don't rehearse it. Just keep your mouth shut if you can't like speak life into it and change the situation with your words.
That's really good. And that's very much easier said than done. So that's
very much easier said than done.
That's a lot of self-control. And that's a fruit of the spirit too. Like to guard your mouth or keep your mouth shut. Like if you absolutely can't say anything good about this person, just don't say anything.
Yes.
That is hard, but it's doable. And that's something that we have to do to stay on track. Because if we don't, that bitterness will set in, that unforgiveness and that'll block whatever you got going on too.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you don't forgive others.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Ooh, girl. Especially if you see that person, and you don't even have to be in person. It could be online or wherever. Like if you see that person and you just like, you have to catch yourself right in that moment. Has it ever been a time where, so how do you do that? Like, do you have to like stop, take a deep breath? How do you catch that? Because sometimes I know for me, and maybe other people can relate to this, sometimes it just happens and I don't even realize it, that while it's happening until later. And I'm just like, oh, dang, like I didn't catch that down. So what do you do? How do you catch it in that moment?
I catch it in the moment. Like literally, like you have to, like you said, it's easier said than done. Like you literally have to catch it in the moment. Like you just, like, I'm just keep using you for example. Okay. Like you did something to me and I walk past you and I see you and I'm kind of like rolling my eyes, but instead I'm gonna say, hi Tiana. Like the love walk is something so serious. Like to walk in love, like people think so many other things are just so hard to do, but for me personally, it was my love walk. Like how to walk in love when you feel a way about a situation or a person. Mm-hmm. You just have to literally catch it and nip it in the butt quickly, because if you don't and you're harboring those feelings, like nothing good is going to come from that.
Yeah, and that's how you become cold-hearted.
Yes.
It's more about, not even necessarily about the other person. It's really for your own heart's sake. Yeah. Like you just have to do it. So, okay, you said to nip it in the bud, catch it when it first comes. So what would you say is a step-by-step guide or step-by-step advice that you would give someone who has been hurt or betrayed by someone and who they want to become cold-hearted?
I would say it's natural to want to hurt someone that's hurt you, but instead don't. I would say you have to, number one would be to forgive, because you're forgiven. You've done things too. So, just forgive because you've done things too. So forgive so you can be forgiven as well. Number two would be to don't gossip or even speak on the situation if you are not led to. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. So the more you talk about the situation and rehearse it, the more damage you do. Mm-hmm. Number three would just be to adjust your heart, even like when it's uncomfortable. Number four is read scriptures. Number five would be to pray about it in the spirit and just talk to God about it. Like, don't even go to people. Like, just tell your father, like, this person hurt me. This is your child. Like, you know what to do. What am I supposed to do in this situation? And number six would be to trust again. That's going to be hard too, but trust again. It's going to be okay. Like, it'll be okay. And if all that don't work for you and you still don't know what to do, you still got a hard heart. Evangelist Alexander has two messages that I love. One is the heart that rises in triumph, and then another one is called Matters of the Heart. I would say listen to those. Those are free, so listen to those.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that, because I will leave that linked down in the description, because that helped me out a lot too. Yes. Because when it comes to, and also great steps, like that's easy for you because it seems like you just have a lot of self-control, but for others they are going to need that message, like, and plus you just have years of experience with it. For someone who's new, it just may not be that easy for them. So definitely I'm leaving these steps in the description too.
It's definitely a process. It was nothing that just came easy. You think I just, like, I don't like somebody and I'm saying I love them. Like, no, it's definitely a process.
That's so good. And then also I just want to mention that, because it's something that I struggled with too, and for those of you who don't know, which y'all probably don't, me and Angie, we were holding each other accountable so that we won't become cold-hearted against people, because that was a temptation for both of us. And so it really does help to have an accountability partner. Yes. Not just like being like, oh, you making sure you're doing your part, but just for that accountability, being like, friend, like, I almost slipped up today. Like, this is what happened. Like, can you help me? Can you give me scripture? Like, really having someone to walk that out with does help a lot too. Because like I said, for me, it was, you could sometimes take comfort in being hard-hearted. You could sometimes be like, okay, I'm protecting myself, or no, I want to be mad because it's a defense mechanism. But it's like, that's also deception as well. And that's just works of the flesh. Your flesh want to be mad. Your flesh want to be bitter, but you have to push past that. So that is just so good.
Very good. That's true. It does help having someone to hold you accountable and someone you can run things by, and someone who's going through the same thing as you. Like, we're growing together. So that does help a lot to have an accountability partner when it comes to this.
Yes. Also, honorable mention. So Angie is newly married to her husband, Jalen Crossland. And if you're not a fan, but if you listen to the podcast and you've heard his episode before, but if you haven't, go check that out. So yes, so she's newly married. She's a Crossland now. And I want to ask you, so how has your heart posture improved since you've been married? And how important is it for you now as a married woman to not become cold-hearted?
My heart is much more tender towards Jalen. I am very cautious when it comes to my heart posture with him. Having a cold heart or a hard heart is an open door for the enemy. And I do refuse to let the enemy steal anything from me or Jalen. So I'm very like cautious, like when it comes to him and things in our marriage and just us, period. It has improved because I know he wouldn't do anything intentionally to hurt me. And knowing that allows me to take a step back from situations and to actually evaluate them before I even get that ick on me. Like I immediately like want to talk to him and see like where did this come about, or and let him know like this hurt my feelings or this offended me in this way, so that we can talk about it and, you know, get that out of us quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so good. And it just reminds me of the point that you made earlier, just about those bonds and knowing who you're in relationship with.
Yes, know your role.
Yes, knowing your role in other
Mm-hmm.
people's lives too. Obviously, you're his wife, so you know his role. But
Yes.
with friends, or you know your role in this, you know, thing. But with
Yes.
friends, it's like being friends with people who are mature enough to where you can talk to them and be like, okay, hey, or where you know their character. Because you can say, okay, I know Jalen wouldn't hurt me. I know that it wasn't intentional. Like, yes, I'm hurt, but I know he didn't mean to hurt me, or whatever the case. But you can't say that about someone who you don't know their character. You don't know your lane in their life. So that is really, really good too when it comes to people.
Yep. And that's also important why you should also guard your heart.
Yes.
You know.
So when you say that you can become cold-hearted toward God, how can you tell the difference? Like, how can you tell whether you're mad at a person or whether you're mad at God? And if that is the case, if you do determine that, okay, I'm cold-hearted towards God, how do you come out of that?
That's a really good question. To know the difference, I would say you would have to know yourself. Like, you will know like your feelings you harboring towards this situation, this person, or if you're blaming God. And that's not, and if that's the case, you should not blame God for the nature of wishy-washy people. These are his people, but he's not the person you blame for someone hurting you.
That's really good.
And that's why I say you should talk to him about it in situations always.
Yeah, because that'll help you with that closeness to God and that intimacy with God. And you'll know more about his character. And you'll know, like, that wasn't my fault. Like,
yes.
the one, like, don't get at me.
Right.
So, that's really good.
Yes.
So, do you have any final remarks for the people before we close?
Again, I would say definitely guard your heart. Know where you have people in your life and in your heart. Because like I said, if you know your lane and you know your role in people's lives, you don't really open the door for many situations. If you know someone is your friend, you call them a friend, or they're your best friend or your bestest friend, like, know where they are in your heart and where you are in their heart, so that you don't overplay your role in people's lives. I would say definitely take your love walk serious, and remember to just always pray.
Yes, always pray. Listen, that was such a good final remark. Thank you so much for being on today too. And I hope that you all enjoyed my wonderful guest. To keep up with Angie, her Instagram is at loveange with 3 G's, and her TikTok is the same, loveange with 3 G's. Thank you all so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.